This is Dan Schneider. On this Dan Schneider video interview, the talk is LA Confidential, the 1997 film noir, neo-noir. I'll be talking with Gordon Briggs about why it's a great film, and the conversation will begin in a moment. LA Confidential is the subject of today's show. Gordon Briggs will be talking about why he and I both think it's a great film. Gordon's appeared a handful of times before talking about other great films in this series. So before we get into the film, though, Gordon, if you could give a little background about who you are, what you do, and anything else.
Thanks for having me, Dan. My name's Gordon Briggs. I'm a teacher at University of Rio Grande Community College, and a local cinephile.
So, LA Confidential was one of the most notable films of the 1990s. It's on a lot of the lists of certainly the best films of the 90s, if not best American films, probably in the top 20 or so. I think recently it was named the number one or two film in a major magazine poll. I forget, this came out just coincidentally when I wanted to do a show on this. Before we get into the film in any depth, if you could give, for those who've not seen it, just sort of an introductory to this film, what it achieved.
I remember my first experience with this film was I actually saw it in theaters when I was 16 years old. Like you say, it's a neo-noir. Oh, goodness. It's based on a novel by James Elroy, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it basically revolves around three cops who are working in Los Angeles, trying to solve three different crimes through three different methods of police work, and understanding that their crimes are somehow related to an overall corruption in the city. So I think that's the arc that they're going to go through. But really, I think one of the reasons why LA Confidential works for me is, and that has enormous rewatch value, is that it's a movie about illusions. This is a movie about people thinking that they know what's happening and understanding they really don't. I think it's an interesting movie about showbiz. I think it's an interesting movie about this intersection between police and crime and Hollywood. So that's why I think is the overall story of the movie. We can get into more specifics if you want.
Yeah. This movie, in a sense, was a movie that made the names of a number of people involved in it. The director, Curtis Hanson, had a few good, solid films before and some afterwards. Guy Pearce had a few films under his belt, and he became a bigger star in the next decade. Russell Crowe probably even burned brighter as a star. And Kevin Spacey, had a few roles, notably the one in Seven as the criminal. And this one sort of established that he could do non-criminal roles, although one could argue in his personal life, who knows how indicative of that it was. What do you think it was about this film, or the time that it was made, or was it the time that it's set in, these people, none of them who were big stars on the Gene Hackman or Jack, what's his name? Nicholson level. Do you think that enhanced the fact that these were not big names at the time?
If I remember correctly, Guy Pearce and Russell Crowe both came out of Australia.
Yeah.
And there was this thing where I don't know, action stars were these guys like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, and we had these, clean-cut, good-looking guys, and all of a sudden you have Guy Pearce and Russell Crowe coming out of Australia and really kind of really inhabiting those characters. But I think one of the reasons why this film succeeds so well is that context in which it came out. For anyone listening, this is the late 1990s. I think we're in 1997 here.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a decade, which I call kind of a golden age of the neo-noir. It's this conflagration of, it's this merging of, detective movie, crime movie, remakes of old film noirs that were happening, and kind of these erotic thrillers that were happening. You look at what's happening in movie theaters now, what's happening on streaming now, that you would have a movie, a big budget Hollywood movie that will be meant for adults, and it will be R-rated, and it will be a big hit. And people would go to see it. So there were these movies like Devil in a Blue Dress, if you guys have seen that, or The Grifters, if you guys have seen that, or Red Rock West, or Usual Suspects, David Lynch's movies Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, and the movie called Mulholland Falls. There were a lot of these neo-film noirs that were happening in the 1990s. I think LA Confidential was the one that kind of fired on all cylinders, captured everything that worked best about the neo-noir. What I think really helps it as far as a viewer watching it is I just want to praise this movie's opening 20 minutes. It really revolves around, it opens with Danny DeVito doing narration. And I'm one of these people that tried to read the book. I'm not going to talk about the book at all because the book was so vast and so huge that me in my 20s was just not ready to read something like that. I probably could now. But it's this big, sprawling story with all these characters, and they really kind of open it with Danny DeVito kind of narrating who everyone is and what the stakes are and what's happening here. And it revolves around this elaborate Christmas night beating, I want to call it. They call it Bloody Christmas. So it's cool that you're picking this movie now, Dan, because LA Confidential is kind of a Christmas movie. But think about how many noirs you've seen that start with a crime. Usually they start with a crime and the detective will be introduced later, or they'll start with a detective being hired to do some kind of investigating. That's not what happens here. It really does start with those three men. It really does start with those three men. I have their names written down: Exley, Bud White, and Jack Vincennes. Yeah. It really does start out with them in three separate places, all coming together around this Christmas party at the police station. So I think one of the things that really kind of differentiates the movie is this idea that it's not starting with a crime, it's starting with these characters. It's starting with the police. And that was different. But also, when that Bloody Christmas thing happens, I think the real themes of the movie start to come in, which is show business, which is illusions. The basic premise of LA Confidential is that the police and crime fighting is just as much a part of showbiz as movie making is. Look at Kevin Spacey's character of Jack Vincennes, how he works on a TV show, being their technical advisor. But then he meets up with Danny DeVito and stages, basically, a pot bust for a movie star. And he says, okay, when I come in, I want you to have your camera here, and I want you to have the lights here. And he stages this arrest almost as if he were a director making a movie. And they have the film studio in the background and all that kind of stuff. So visually and narratively, I think the movie is always ping-ponging back and forth between the truth and show business. And that's all captured in those first 20 minutes where they introduce everybody and tell you all the characters. And you know that Guy Pearce is a stand-up guy, but he's ambitious. And you know that Bud White's maybe kind of a dirty cop, but he'll still, he'll protect women. And you know that Jack Vincennes, Kevin Spacey's character, is very vain. So they really hit all those character notes and establish what the conflict is in the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Well, I think one of the things that separates LA Confidential from film noirs, as well as more modern 80s and 90s neo-noirs, is that in order to get the book and the main story workable for film, because the book is part of a quartet, It's part of four books, so it occupies its own filmic or literary universe. And so they strip it down because the book has a lot of other details, other crimes and whatnot that come together in it. So I think it's called the Night Owl Cafe is where the Bloody Christmas happens. So they strip it all down. And in order to keep the interest, rather than in, say, a typical Robert Mitchum film noir from the 40s or 50s, where we know Mitchum just by whatever character he's playing, he's still always Bob Mitchum. Here, they go the opposite end. Since we don't know these people like Jack Nicholson, if he was in it, or a big name star like that, they have to go with the little details of the characterization so that you get to know the characters so that you can then join them, whereas you're immediately with Bob Mitchum in most of his film noirs. Would you agree about that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Russell Crowe was not that well known and Guy Pearce was not that well known. I mean, if you've seen Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, this is a completely different portrayal that we're used to seeing Guy Pearce in. Because these guys are unknown, it kind of makes you believe them more. But I think there is an element of that movie star aspect here, and that's with Kim Basinger's character.
Yeah.
I think that whatever flaws that she might have as an actress, this is just a very interesting role she's given here, where you look at her and she's Kim Basinger, but she's Kim Basinger playing Veronica Lake, but she's also this woman, Lynn Brackett, at the same time. Yeah. So I think that on the one hand, they kind of want these new, fresh faces so you can hook into the drama more, but at the same time, they do want to remind you about old Hollywood glamour.
Yeah, she's sort of like a Jessica Rabbit come to life in the film. And it's interesting because you mentioned like the Ed Exley character played by Guy Pearce. He's the straight up button down, gotta be moral kind of guy. Bud White is the hothead who is likely to blow whatever investigation. And Vincennes, you get the sense that Vincennes has his hands in all kinds of pies that we're not even seeing on screen. You kind of know he's creepy and slippery and whatnot. But the interesting thing is, ultimately, he's not the bad guy in the film.
No. In fact, one of the things I like about this is that everyone kind of undergoes a complicated arc, because remember this scene between James Cromwell, who I think his character's name is Sidney. Yeah.
Dudley.
No, sorry, yeah, Dudley. Between Dudley and Exel at the start of the movie, where he's like, "Would you ever beat a suspect? No. Would you ever plant evidence on a suspect? No." And he's like, "For God's sake, then stay out of homicide." And the strange thing is, if I remember the movie correctly, Guy Pearce's character will end up doing all those things. Yeah. He will end up doing all those things. Yeah. Jack Vincennes, Kevin Spacey's character, is this vain guy who's corrupt, who's on the take, but as soon as that actor loses his life, as soon as that actor gets his throat cut, and Kevin Spacey walks into the motel and stares at that actor's eyes, his dead eyes, and the eyes are staring back at Kevin Spacey, something changes. Yeah. Something changes within Vincennes, and he actually starts to become a police officer. He actually starts to become a detective. And I remember being in the theater, spoiler, when you find out that Dudley is actually in on it and pulls out that gun and shoots him. I remember the whole audience was like, the whole audience took a breath. Like, wait a minute, you're killing off one of your main characters here? Yeah. We're not even halfway through the film yet. So I think one of the things that really works about the movie is that he has set up all these characters, and you think you know who they are. But even Russell Crowe's character of White, even he undergoes a change when he becomes softer and really starts to fall in love with, you can argue, is he falling in love with Veronica Lake, or is he falling in love with Lynn Brackett, or is he falling in love with the image of these people? And then he becomes a beater himself. He starts to beat up women himself. So I like how all three of the characters have an established set of principles that they claim to stick to, but throughout the story, all those principles eventually become compromised.
Yeah, and there's a character that's mentioned throughout the film, but we don't find out about it till the end, and that's the character that Exley always refers to as Rollo Tomasi. Now,
The guy who gets away.
I don't know if you want to go off on what Rollo Tomasi is or whatnot.
Rollo Tomasi is a character that Exley made. It's a name of the guy who gets away with it, of the guy who gets away with the crimes the police never seem to arrest, the guy, the ultimate corrupt person. At the end, he kind of names Dudley as Tomasi. That, oh, he's the guy he's the ultimate corrupt person. He's the law enforcement officer who's also a corrupt criminal. So, and at the end, he actually does, I think, kind of the dishonorable thing. He doesn't shoot Dudley in the front, does he?
Yeah.
he just opens fire on him in the back, and he's just like, whatever, and kills him. So I think Rollo Tomasi is someone who's supposed to represent the corruption, the person who never gets caught. Yeah. But if I remember the ending to this movie correctly, the irony of all this is that I don't think they even acknowledge that Dudley was a corrupt person. They say, let's make him into a hero. So in a way, he does kind of get away with it. Yeah. And Exley is participating in a roundabout way. He is participating in a cover-up here. But that's the different kind of showbiz the movie's talking about.
There are a number of things, because the film, I believe, is set in 1951, is it? It's around the middle of the century, late 40s, yeah. Early 50s. And there are some characters that give good background to this story, the fictional story, with real life characters. One of them being a low-level thug named Johnny Stompanato, who is the boyfriend of Lana Turner in real life. Another is Mickey Cohen, who's mentioned a few times. He was the mafia guy who ran L.A. from the 30s to the 50s. What do you think that by having these real-life characters pop in for just sort of brief cameos, do you think that helps establish the film in any way?
This is fascinating to me because the history of Los Angeles is going to be... you would have to have a 19-hour movie to cover all the stuff that the movie touches on. I really think that... When I first saw this movie, I had no idea who Mickey Cohen was. Since then, he's popped up in a whole bunch of other movies as a side character, as a main character. So I really think it adds something to the texture of this movie. And am I getting this wrong? Didn't Lana Turner shoot her kid shoot?
Yeah, her daughter shot Stompanato.
Her daughter was it the same guy?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a whole other story you can go into.
And the thing is, Stompanato was a woman beater too, just like Bud White and Lynn Bracken.
And she had her daughter. No, her daughter shot the guy, but then there was something strange with the ballistics, and then Lana Turner went on the stand and gave this heartfelt acting speech about how she had to kill him because it was self-defense. I can't remember the details of the story, honestly, but it's just this strange layer of showbiz and crime and Hollywood all mixing together. But yeah, I think that really does help with any kind of verisimilitude that happens with the movie. I remember they tried this again. And I think it was Sean Penn as Mickey Cohen and Ryan Gosling. It was a movie called Gangster Squad, I want to say, that tried to do the same thing. But, I think James Ellroy actually wrote a novel called The Black Dahlia, didn't he?
Yeah. It's part of that quartet.
Yeah, part of that same period, but it wasn't made into a nearly as interesting film by Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that realism does help, and it does help if you know a little bit more about the history of Hollywood.
Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about the character of Dudley Smith, played by James Cromwell, because Cromwell is an interesting actor in that he reminds me in a lot of ways of sort of being like the white Morgan Freeman, is that he started out as this, background actor throughout the 70s and 80s. He was on things like All in the Family, a few other shows like that, playing minor characters. Then he worked his way up to things. He was on a couple of, I think, one or two Star Trek episodes, as well as one of the Star Trek films in the 90s. He did the Babe movie with the little pig, and that sort of put his name on the radar. And this, to me, is one of, if not, I'm not an aficionado, but this is, for me, I guess, the best role that he was ever in. And I can say that because I was 32, double your age, when this film came out, and I remember it was many years before from seeing the end of this film, where when he shoots the Dudley Smith character, and you go, yeah. Because you're rooting for the good guys, and this film, even though it's film noir, it has the reverse kind of intent that most film noir does, which is to make you appreciate the guy who sits on the fence. Is he good or bad? Here, even though it's neo-noir, you're rooting for the good guy, in this case, Exley. And when he finally does, put a slug in him, it's good. What was your take on Cromwell's role there? Because to me, he's one of the best baddies.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the strange thing. Like you said, he was in a lot of films before he became more famous. I had grown up with a comedy movie called Murder by Death. And in Murder by Death, it's Neil Simon getting all the old detectives together, Miss Marple, Charlie Chan, all that kind of stuff, getting them all together. And there's a character there played by James Coco called Monsieur Perrier, who's a parody of Monsieur Perrault. And Monsieur Perrier's chauffeur, his driver, is played by James Cromwell. I didn't know that, but until I went back and watched it again. Like a lot of people, I was really introduced to him as an actor via Babe. When he was Farmer Hoggett in Babe, I was like, oh, that was because I think he even got an Academy Award nomination for Babe. So people's perception of him was as this kind, avuncular, nice man, which is the perfect role to cast a villain in. It's the perfect thing to cast, because everyone thinks, remember how he is with the other characters. He's like the father figure. He's the authority figure. And this is back before everyone went into a film looking for the plot twist. He was such a nice character who helped all three people out. He was the person that you trusted in the movie. And like I said before, as soon as he pulls out the gun and shoots Kevin Spacey, you're like, holy crap, it's him? No. But then again, like, yes, of course it's him. Of course, no one could be that nice and be a cop the whole time. Of course he's corrupt. And I think it really helps that the movie is there are like three different crimes that are being committed, or three different crimes that are being investigated here. And to me, your eye is never really on Cromwell as a suspect, because you're going off in different directions with, the black kids that they arrested, the dead body underneath the house, the night owl murders, the girl who was raped. There are all these other crimes that are happening that you're not really focusing on who is killing Mickey Cohen's old people to take over the drug markets. So I think the script is smart there, and I hope it got all these awards for adaptation. It's a twisty plot, even in a movie, that I look at this movie and it has all these characters, but I never feel confused. Do you? No. You never feel lost. That they really do a good job of just kind of guiding you through who everyone is and what everyone's motivation is. And ultimately to that great shootout at the end. Can we just talk about cinematography and how well that shootout is done?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have seen so many shootouts in movies. I'm almost numb to it now. But they photographed the hell out of that shootout. I remember that one of the things that really works about this movie is that it's a noir film. It's a little bit of a romance, but it's also just a straight up action movie at points. And they do this thing that might be cliche at this point, but I love it every time it's done, which is the shootout is happening at night, or the shootout is happening in the dark room, and the bullets ricochet through the room, and the bullets provide light.
Yeah.
The bullet holes provide light, and the light is now shining through the bullet holes and lighting up your scene. I don't know if you ever seen the Western movie Silverado. Silverado opens with something like this, where a person's in a dark room and bullets are coming in through all different kinds of angles, and light is now shining through those bullets. Catherine Bigelow did a really wild horror Western called Near Dark, where vampires are in a room and the police are shooting up the room, but the bullets don't hurt the vampires. But guess what? The sunlight from the bullets, from the bullet hole shining in, hurts the vampires more. I just love it when they shoot a movie like that, where like the bullet holes are being used to provide lighting in the movie. And I like those little character beats. I like those little character beats where right before the shootout starts, Exley looks at Bud and he's like, all I wanted to do was to be like my father. Yeah. And then the shootout starts. It's just a little small character moment, but I like it. It's like, how did I get here?
And is it Exley who doesn't he fall through a hole in the floor and then pop up at one point?
I think that's Bud White who does that.
That's Bud White, okay.
Yeah, Bud White, because I remember Bud White, I actually got into an argument with someone online about this because they were not a fan of Bud White surviving at the end. But if I look at it again, Bud White gets shot, but he gets shot in the mouth. He gets shot in the mouth. And when they hold hands at the very, very end, Russell Crowe's character is not talking because he's been shot through the mouth. So maybe Russell Crowe's character should have died, but I kind of like that he's not dead, but he's severely wounded, and he finally seems to respect Exley after all these after all this time. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're done here. See you later, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, the film does a good job of subverting expectations with the main characters while sort of being true to the background of the film. Not only in people like Cohen and Stompanato, the gangsters that briefly are mentioned or appear, but one of the things that I remember thinking about this film, which was made in 97, when was it the Rodney King riots? When 91, 92, and then Crash won best film like 4 or 5 years later. So this is right in that era where LA cops, the LA Police Department was at its lowest public opinion polling here. And this film, one of the things I enjoyed about it in a historic sense was it doesn't shy away from the fact. I mean, there's the three black fellows who, again, said in 1951, who were treated just like garbage by the police as a matter of fact. So it's not, even though it's a noir film set in the noir period of films, it has that modern sensibility where it's not looking away from, the reality.
I would agree with that. I think one of the things that when I watched it again in preparation for the podcast, one of the things I realized was just how much the press and press releases and trying to control the image of cops is not only a conversation we still have today, but how important it is to this story. When the Bloody Christmas, when they have that photo of the cops beating up all the Latino people on Christmas, that whole scene is followed by a scene where Guy Pearce goes to the superior's office, and like that pot bust before, they arrange, they choreograph, they stage what's going to be said, what's going to be given to the public, and what the story is going to be. So there is this kind of illicit critique of police officers at the very, very beginning of the movie. Sometimes people use words like propaganda that they really want to make the police officers look good because they're the ones solving crimes. I've enjoyed movies that do that from the cop's point of view, but I think law enforcement here is an institution, just like any other institution, and it can be corrupt. So, and the movie does a good job of depicting that. It's also a good LA noir movie. I think that within the subset of film noir, there's LA noir. And I think that LA just has a specific vibe. Have you ever seen the Altman movie, Long Goodbye?
I've seen that. I was just thinking of Chinatown too.
Oh, yeah, Chinatown is probably the best example. Chinatown does this. Long Goodbye does this. There's just something about LA that lends itself to these. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's the setting. Maybe that it's the desert. I think that in Chinatown it was water that everyone was after. Yeah. It was the water. But in the Altman film, there was kind of this mix of show business, and there's just something about LA, I think, that lends itself to maybe the idea of lies and truth and illusions better than a different setting would.
Do you want to talk a bit about Jerry Goldsmith's score, the musical score? Because it lost, from what I'm reading, it lost to the Titanic score, which I thought was a very overblown and ridiculous. I mean, Celine Dion, I'm not saying anything against her personally, but I can't stand her music. But Jerry Goldsmith, this is the guy who gave us the great Planet of the Apes score, and several dozen film scores over the decades that were interesting.
Yeah. Jerry Goldsmith, the man's done so. I'm afraid to look up his filmography here. He's done so many good scores. I remember one of the things that this movie opens up with is not the Jerry Goldsmith score. I believe doesn't it open up with Beyond the Sea? Somewhere beyond the sea. Yeah. But yeah. Goldsmith score, very good, not anachronistic, uses a lot of these old, what do you call this music? I guess it's not blues music, like those classic songs. Like I remember they're using songs from the period.
Yeah.
In the movie, I guess you would call them ballads. I'm really not sure what you would call them, but it really does help create the setting of the story.
Yeah. And speaking of setting, let's talk about, you mentioned, this L.A. noir stuff, and I just want to circle back to it. I'm someone, when I first saw Chinatown, and I probably saw it maybe about 10 years after it came out, when I was a young man, I thought it was a good, solid movie. Polanski certainly had, I think, done better films, but it does capture that sort of L.A. noir thing. But this film, to me, is a superior film. That film sort of leans into the mythos. It's mythologizing Los Angeles. It's trying to make it seem more glamorous than it was. You have what's his name, the old film director Huston playing the bad guy in that film, and to me, he's more of an old-fashioned Mr. Big than the Cromwell character, and I think for me, the basing of most of this film in the reality, with real name characters, with more realistic good guys and bad guys, makes it a superior film. And I think these are two films that are worthwhile in comparing. How would you compare the two of them, since they're probably the most noteworthy L.A. noir films of the last 50 years?
I love L.A. Confidential and I love Chinatown. They're two different movies, and I think that Jake Gittes, Jack Nicholson's character, is just different than the
Yeah.
detectives and this one. As far as realism goes, Chinatown, as far as I know, is based off a real life crime of trying to steal water, the water scandals of LA.
Mm.
I think that, oh goodness, now I'm totally blanking on the screenwriter's name, Robert Towne. Uh, I just think that maybe Robert Towne's script, it's original, it's not based on a book. Whoever wrote LA Confidential, I'm sorry, I don't know that name right now, but whoever wrote the script had a book to go to. Chinatown's script was more original, and at the end of LA Confidential, I can honestly say that the crime is solved when the good guys win. At the end of Chinatown, that is not what happens.
Yeah.
The corrupt people win. Jake Gittes is forever changed. The innocent people get killed. And what are we left to do with this? Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown. So I think people might leave Chinatown and the Robert Altman movie. Keep in mind, this is post Watergate. This is us post Vietnam. This is America is becoming aware of its own internal corruption. I think that when people leave LA Confidential, they leave entertained. I don't know if they leave shaken about the world that they live in the same way that they do with LA Confidential. The crime in LA Confidential, how it approaches its female characters of Kim Basinger is these are prostitutes who have plastic surgery so that they look like movie stars, which is it completely fits in with the theme of illusions and people being conned into illusions. But I think that in Chinatown, there's this rape of the land that's happening. And that's kind of juxtaposed with the rape of Faye Dunaway's character. I mean, I still remember that scene in Chinatown where he's like, who is she? She's my sister. She's my daughter. My sister, my daughter. That is just an intense scene when she says, she's my sister and my daughter. Spoiler. And the audience is like, oh, that's what we're investigating. Okay. Oh. And in LA Confidential, again, fantastic movie. It really just is about Cromwell's character of Dudley trying to take over from Mickey Cohen, which is still a crime, but it's not this personal, generational sexual violation that Polanski and Town were really getting into about, no, it's all corrupt. It's all bleak. And there's nothing you can do. There's no one you can shoot in the back. There's no one you can arrest. It's all fucked. So that's as far as script and story. I would put LA Confidential here, and I would put Chinatown right here. But to me, it's like comparing Godfather and Godfather Part 2. They're both great. Or it's like comparing Godfather to Once Upon a Time in America. To me, they're both great movies. They're both worthy of discussion. I do think that as far as LA Confidential goes, it's one of the best, top 5 in my opinion, movies of the 90s. And Chinatown came out at a time where there were just tons of great movies around. So I think that LA Confidential might stand out a bit more because it came out at a time where there were good movies. But it was a great movie.
Let me just step back for a moment, because earlier you had mentioned about how when Exley shoots Dudley in the back, and I had said, yeah, you got it. I think I read some critic some years afterward, maybe about 10 years after the film came out, who had an idea that I had thought of, but he put it into words, that it's not all sweetness and light, the ending of LA Confidential. It's not as bleak as a Chinatown. But we do know that Ed Exley has gotten away with cold-blooded murder. Yes, it's of a scumbag, but he's gotten away with it, and he knows he's
Sure.
gotten away with it, and that kind of thing is the rot. And maybe I'm misremembering, but at one point, maybe when he's shot and taken away, Bud White or maybe Lynn asks about Rollo Tomasi, and Exley makes some kind of comment or something where he recognizes that he's now Rollo Tomasi.
Watching this movie, there's always a question I had because Exley's dad was a cop
Yeah.
and his dad was killed. Are they implying that Dudley may have been the person who killed his dad?
Oh, I think
Okay.
I don't think it's implied necessarily that it was actually him, but that's the way in Exley's mind he sees Dudley once Dudley's outed.
Where he's like, once he turns his back,
Yeah.
it's kind of like he's avenging his father
Right,
because
right.
they never caught the guy
Yeah.
who killed his father,
Yeah.
and it's like you're Rollo Tomasi.
Yeah.
And he also killed Kevin Spacey, so I think maybe the audience is getting vengeance as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But he is, one of the things I like about it is that Exley's character does buy into the corruption here, but he does it on his own terms, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like, when they're, okay, one of the things I like about the movie is if you look at the movie, there's about 3 or 4 scenes where people have this two-way mirror thing.
Mm.
There are two-way mirrors in people's offices. Veronica Lake, sex worker, has a two-way mirror where he's able to get taped having sex with her. There's a two-way mirror in the police officer's office when they discuss who to fire for Bloody Christmas. And there's one in the interrogation thing. There's this whole idea about appearances being deceiving in the movie. But they are coming up with a plot at the end, after the shootout, where the plot's being explained. It's the psychiatrist psycho scene where someone comes and explains, okay, this is what happened. And they're like, if we play this right, Dudley could come out as a hero. And Guy Pearce's character just looks and grins and goes, a hero. Okay, let's make him a hero. In exchange, I'll get the promotion.
Yeah.
So there is this idea that he is corrupt, but not in this. I don't think that Eck going to be running drugs. I don't see him doing that. But he's just kind of going to, like, I can't fight the whole battle, but I can fight this one battle and win.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take down the whole department, so he's getting a promotion. Bud White goes off with his girl, and I'll have Dudley's old job. So it's almost like he's corrupt, but it's what we call a soft corruption.
Yeah.
it's like how people are soft fascists. I'll just do a little bit of corruption. But I think that's one of the thing I like about the movie is that at the end, the character you thought was uncorruptible, it's like, no, I'll take some corruption, but he has to. Yeah. The hero has to be kind of naive at the start, undergo his hero's journey, and at the end, he learns more. He's not as naive anymore.
So, speaking of soft corruption, let's talk about the Oscars and the critical reception of this film when it first came out. So, 97, it's up against Titanic, and there was no way that any film, because of at that time, Titanic, I guess, was the most popular.
It was massive. Massive.
It was huge, but it's clearly not. I mean, you look back now, almost 3 decades, and it's like it's laughable to think of the two films. I mean, whatever you want to say about L.A. Confidential, you can say it's not as poetic as some other great films. It's not this, that, or that, but it is just there's really nothing that you can say is weak about this film. It from the casting to the scripts to the music to the twist, to the realism, historically speaking, it really does it all. And for a major Hollywood film, it's an outstanding work of art. The next year, there was a similar thing with Spielberg's versus Malick's World War II dramas. I thought the Malick one was far superior, but this one, it lost. What is your take on that? Do you know?
Well, just not to go off on a tangent about the Academy Awards, but here's my take on it as someone who's been in this game for a long time. Making a great movie is more of an achievement than winning a statue for making a great movie. Sometimes the movies that win, they might have, popularity behind them, but it might be that context of the year that they came out. And to me, I don't want to say being nominated is just enough, but if you look at some of the movies that have lost Best Picture, like, I don't know, if you're going to ask me, do I think Goodfellas is better than Dancing with Wolves? Yes, I think Goodfellas is better than Dancing with Wolves. But to me, sometimes losing the Academy Award is the real winning, because this is just my humble opinion. As soon as a movie wins Best Picture, it immediately becomes less cool, because the Academy Awards are the establishment. And if the establishment is calling you the year's Best Picture, there's something about it that immediately wants to make me defend the movie less. I think that LA Confidential's place in film history is secured. Whether or not it won what award doesn't mean a whole bunch to me, because a lot of people saw it, a lot of people liked it, and its place in film history is secured. And sometimes when we do this, I see a lot of film people get visibly upset, agitated, angry about what movie won what award and what actor won one award. I totally understand that. If I can be quite honest, I stopped watching the Academy Awards. The last time I watched the Academy Awards was when The King's Speech won Best Picture. And I can't even remember what else came out that year. There must have been better films than The King's Speech. But I remember thinking the year after, I was much less agitated as a film viewer, because I'm just like, why do I care what one group of people say the best movie is? Like, this is not about the same topic. The best movie I saw in the 20th century so far, from the year 2000 to the year 2025. You know what it was? You know what it was? It's a documentary. It's a documentary called The Act of Killing. And it's a documentary about war crimes that happened in a Southeast Asian country and in the 1960s or the 1970s, I want to say. And this filmmaker named Joshua Oppenheimer goes back to this country and has the people who did those war crimes reenact those war crimes.
I think I've heard of that now when you say that.
Yeah, and he reenacts those crimes not as a documentary, but as genre films. He has them reenact the war crimes as fantasies, as horror films, as detective films, as westerns. And he has the people who do the war crimes become the victims. And it's a really interesting movie, not only about memory, but about art and about culture. To me, it was a fantastic use of cinema. And it did receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Documentary. It didn't win.
What's the name of it again?
The Act of Killing.
I'll have to look that up. I think my wife might have. My wife watches stuff on Criterion much more than I do. I'll have to ask about it. I think she's the one I think who mentioned that.
Yeah, and it has a sequel to a follow-up, and the people who were in it actually got investigated by the UN for war crimes. People like Werner Herzog and Earl Morris really were pushing the movie. It's a fantastic documentary, and as soon as I saw it, the day after I saw it, I'm like, that movie's not going to win an Academy Award, and I'm not sure I would even want it to win an Academy Award. Okay? Because, like I said, what they achieved there was such a beautiful, poetic, intelligent movie. Giving it a statue almost seems like it lessens it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you made a great movie. That's your achievement. So many people never get to make a movie. You guys made a fantastic movie. In my opinion, it's one of the best films of the 20th century, Act of Killing. And it didn't win an award, but so the hell what? You made a fantastic movie. So I would encourage all fellow cinephiles who may be listening to us pontificate like this, to the Academy Awards and award reception really does help with your film's financial, with the box office. It helps with your legacy. But ultimately, whether or not you are a good movie is not indicative of how many awards you win is not indicative of the quality of the film that you made.
So before we end this, and I ask you to just summarize why you think it's a great film, let me just ask you again about three of the lead characters, because almost 30 years on, Spacey probably rose the highest critically, and then his own personal demons or whatnot destroyed his career. Russell Crowe had a good 12 solid years after that where he was a big name and could draw things. I can't remember the last thing he was in. And P.S. was maybe just a notch below Crowe in terms of being able to, helm a movie and whatnot. What do you think of each of those three actors, their careers afterwards, and why aren't they? They're not in the Nicholson. They're not in. They're not in the superstar. They're not in the Brad Pitt or the Tom Cruise range. Why do you think that is? Because look at this film. I mean, they show off so much potential.
Well, I think the person who really capitalized was Russell Crowe. If you remember when Gladiator came out, Master and Commander, he was a huge star. And ironically, I think that Guy Pearce actually got one of his best roles with The Brutalist that came out last year. As far as what's happened with these actors, if you look at what's happened in the last, 10, 12 years of Hollywood, you remember a time, it wasn't that long ago, where you could get a film made solely on the actor who was in it. Remember when Johnny Depp was so popular, no matter what Johnny Depp was in, it could be a piece of crap. People would go see Johnny Depp in those movies because people like Johnny Depp. Remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, the biggest star in the world was Jim Carrey? That if he was in The Grinch, Bruce Almighty, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, $100 million movie. We seem to be in a place where, the IP is more popular now than the name. Even someone like Tom Cruise has to link himself to a Mission Impossible or to a Top Gun. And stars still matter. They still matter. But I think we're living in a time where, and there's all kinds of reasons for this, living in a time where the supremacy of the actor has been replaced with the supremacy of the product, of the IP, of the viable thing. I mean, you can argue, was Chadwick Boseman a star, or was Black Panther a star? Is Cynthia Erivo? Ariana Grande is a musical star. As far as musical, Ariana Grande is a musical star. But are people there to see Wicked, or are they there to see her in Wicked? So,
and with most of these superhero movies, how many Batmans have there been? How many Supermans?
I remember, and you remember this too, there was a time where this was not guaranteed, where the only reason why a lot of people went to go see Tim Burton's Batman movie was because it had Jack Nicholson in it. And you would kind of merge actor with product, but now they could put anyone, I don't say anyone, they can put a lot of different people into a Batman movie and people would still go see it. So I think what's happened is this overall kind of devaluing or the supremacy of the actor has gone away. I can think of maybe Tom Cruise, maybe Denzel Washington, and maybe Scarlett Johansson are people who could, get your movies made and get people to go see Tom Hanks, maybe. Yeah. What I think has happened is that movies like LA Confidential, if they neo-noirs are just gone now as far as movies go. But I think all this stuff has migrated to streaming. And I think you'll see these actors really doing a good job really getting these character-driven movies on streaming. Colin Farrell has an interesting neo-noir in LA called Sugar. That's on Apple TV. They remade Perry Mason and set Perry Mason in post-war LA. And that was season 1 of that was actually very good. And I think Clive Owen did a version of who's Sam Spade's story, or maybe it was Dashiell Hammett, I think. That's a streaming show. So there are a lot of these neo-noirs and actor-driven stories. They're around. They're on streaming, and they're about 8 to 10 parts. And you have to pay your $10 a month for your streaming service, or you can go to piracy. But they're there. But as far as the movie theaters go, it's just it's rough going, man. Yeah. It's rough going. And I'm a teacher, and I asked students about what they're watching, and this is just something that's been a shift. Some of them just don't watch movies anymore. They watch TikTok. Yeah. They watch stuff on their phones. And there's still people out there who like movies. There's still people who want to see movies like this. I meet them, and I make sure I know who they are. But a lot of the young people are coming up in a time where the actor is not the ideal anymore. The ideal person is the influencer.
Yeah, people don't read, for example, anything anymore other than the backs of a cartons for calorie counts or something, and so it's similar. So let me just ask you finally then, if you were to encounter someone who asked you, hey, should I watch this LA Confidential movie? What would you tell them why they should watch it and why it's great?
LA Confidential is a fantastic mystery. A little bit of romance, action, and drama. And it's an interesting movie about movies. It's set in Hollywood. And I think it's an interesting movie about how not only law enforcement might work to persuade our opinions, but how movies seduce us, how about show business, about how glamour. Also, it's not boring at all. This might be the 9th or 10th time I've seen this movie. Right from the get-go, the pace of this movie, it's like bam, 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 bam. There's always stuff happening, and it has that thing that a few movies have, because it's not built around one person, is it? It's built around 3 or 4 interesting characters. So every time you leave Guy Pearce, you got Russell Crowe, and those things are good. And every time you leave Russell Crowe, you got Kevin Spacey, and those scenes are good. And you have the scenes with Dudley and Spacey, or Dudley and White, and then you have. Can we just say what a national treasure Danny DeVito is? This guy has been working. This guy started off in Taxi, I want to say, on TV in the 1970s.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest he was in.
Cuckoo's Nest, yes. Producer on Pulp Fiction. He's been the guy. When this guy shows up as the gossip columnist, my heart, he is such a good actor. And you would think that maybe he wouldn't be working still. He's still in movies. He's still in TV shows. He's been on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia for the past 20 years. And he is, it works as comedy because of him as well. So everything you could want in a movie: sex, death, drugs, mystery, the past, Hollywood, the pacing, action. It's all in LA Confidential. What's strange is that Curtis Hanson, I like Curtis Hanson, God rest his soul. He never had a knockout movie like this afterwards. I mean, I really liked Wonder Boys.
Yeah, that
if you ever saw Wonder Boys, yeah. But and In Her Shoes was also a good movie. And I think that he's a good director who never really grabbed the auteur label, because if you look at his filmography, none of the films really feel like they're the same similar movies. He's one of these directors, like a Philip Noyce or like a Peter Weir sometimes, who would just do different stuff.
I think he would have been probably good in the old studio system. Can you do this,
Yeah,
Curtis? Can you do? And he'd do a good, solid job. But
yeah,
he
these are
wasn't
all
he
good.
wasn't the auteur.
Yeah. A gun for hire.
Yeah.
If he hits the bullseye. So before we go, Dan, I have to ask you, your favorite classic film noir. Are you a Maltese Falcon guy?
Oh, what's no? What's the one where the guy at the end he's crawling on the ground and the girl comes to him? It's who? Oh, my dad's favorite actor was the guy who played a boxer. What's his name? Not Jimmy Cagney. Oh God.
What was the end? What was the
Let me. Oh, John Garfield. The film. It's John Garfield film. Garfield falls at the end, and the woman is taunting him as he's crawling around like the remnants of a pier. Oh,
what the hell are you talking about?
let me look it up. John Garfield. Let me just look that up here, because John Garfield. Let's see Wikipedia. Let's see film. Come on, I don't need to. Okay, film. It was, I think, in 46, 47. Gentleman's Agreement. Body and Soul he was in. That was a good one. But We Were Strangers, The Breaking Point, he ran all the way. We Were Strange Jigsaw. Force of Evil, I think, is the one. Let me see. Force of
I don't
Evil.
think I've seen that.
Peter, is this the one? Not even turn over. Force of Evil. It's one of John Garfield's films. I can't remember the name of it, but John Garfield was a terrific film noir guy. Mitchum's my second favorite actor after Garfield in the film noir.
So
stuff.
Out of the Past?
Out of the Past is another great one, yeah.
Yeah. Out of the Past, yeah. To me, I think I'm Touch of Evil. Maltese Falcon, Touch of Evil are good bookends, I think.
Yeah.
But I'll watch Kiss Me Deadly. I'll watch Asphalt Jungle. Watch. Oh my goodness! Now I'm blanking. Oh, there's too many. There's too many. The Killing by Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, there's so many that I like.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, noir. I recently watched a noir with my wife. I can't. It had Mitchum. It had Robert Mitchum, Robert Ryan, and Robert Young in it. The three Roberts.
a lot of Robert.
Yeah.
Bob.
Crossfire was the name of that one.
Okay. I've seen Crossfire. Okay.
Yeah. That was good. It wasn't a great one, but it was good. The only thing that keeps it from being better is Robert Young has this really cheesy speech about bigotry, but he doesn't mention blacks and Native Americans. He's talking about the Irish and what the Jews and the Irish suffered in the U.S. But other than that, anyway. But it's always a pleasure to chat with you, Gordon. Thanks for spending over an hour talking about LA Confidential.
No problem.